Hello, Hoovians, and welcome back to the channel. Yes, welcome back. See, I'm always creating things. See, because yesterday you saw nonsense, which was me reviewing, which was not reviewing, but sort of like breaking down why the Button Moon theme tune worked really well. And there'll be more of that nonsense coming forward, not just with Button Moon, but with other theme tunes from other TV series. And sometimes I might just poke fun at the fact that there was someone in a program that really weirdly was in a program that didn't seem to match. Well, it did because the personality of the book. He's very good at yelling, but that's a hint for another period of time. Today we're back doing glorious, wonderful, amazing interviews. Yes, and it's going to be an amazing one. When I find more words other than wonderful and amazing, we'll get there. It takes you forever to eat the dictionary. I'm on the letter G. It's a very meaty chapter. But today, my guest is best known as Manitou in The Legend of Dick and Dom, which was a TV series and educational equipment on the BBC Bitesize website. It's the one and only Steve Furst.
Hello, how are you? Hello.
And so we'll start at the very beginning because
Yes.
Julie Andrews once said it was a very good place to start, and she wouldn't stop telling me ever since. She now does it without singing. How did you get into the wonderful world of acting?
Um, Always a good question, and there's no short answer. I would say I it was something I sort of always wanted to do. I was brought up in a family of music and realized I was never good enough to be, although you see instruments behind me, I was never good enough to be a professional musician. My
Yeah,
parents were classical musicians. So
yeah,
and I was I just adored comedy
yeah,
from when I was little. It was always but I didn't want to be a stand-up comic. I always loved sketch comedy.
yeah.
And I thought, well, how do you do that? And I wasn't really sure. And then you read about footlights and Cambridge, and it's like clearly I wasn't good enough to go the Oxbridge route.
Yeah.
Um, so I ended up at a small college in Hampshire, in Winchester, which is now Winchester University, and I was reading drama and television, and I started to kind of act in things and put on shows and doing cabaret shows, and I thought, oh, this is probably it. This is what I think I should be doing. Also, not thinking, oh, I should go to drama school and actually learn it properly and learn all the techniques that drama students are taught.
Mm.
I just sort of ambled my way through. And then when we left college, myself and my best friend, we decided, okay, well, let's put on club nights, and I was doing stand up then,
Yeah,
even though my heart wasn't in it. And then I arrived at doing cabaret
yeah,
and invented this character, Lenny Beige, who I've been performing as on and off for 30 years, and had some success with that. And that's sort of what got me into doing what I do. And because it was putting on a wig and putting on a persona, that I suppose was acting, but without all the training. And I sort of trained on the job. And then I found myself through Lenny Beige becoming, I suppose, just sort of a comedy actor. And now I do more drama stuff as well. So that was the long journey into it, really.
And do you reckon that when you find out that acting something and performing something you want to, do you reckon that that helps you to know that you want to you want to use the passion you've got to try and do the best you can to, and improve every time you do the job itself?
Yeah, I think that's right. I've always said that I've learned on the job, and the love of doing it has kind of propelled me through. But that comes with also this feeling of, oh, I don't really belong, and all of these guys here and these people here, they've all been trained and they've all had a huge amount of experience, and so you get what is commonly known as imposter syndrome. And yes, that I know lots of people who are far more well known than I am who also suffer from imposter syndrome. But the more you do it, the more comfortable you feel, and the I think the kind of the people you work with, the the stronger you get, because they always help, and people don't mind being asked, how do you do this? What are your little secrets? Are there any pitfalls? You know, people like to be asked questions,
Yeah,
like almost like mentoring, and that's something that I always do with kind of people, younger people that I work with. It's like, you know, it's great to be able to go, do you know what you're doing? That maybe, you know, you show them a different way, or you show them, because you kind of, a lot of people kind of come in, and the fear of the situation means they put up this kind of force field of arrogance or appeared arrogance, and that's not usually the case. It might be that bravado kind of masks a feeling of imposter syndrome as well.
yeah. And does it help being able to take your hand at a different variety of genres within the world of acting?
Yeah, the one thing I would say that I'm most appreciative of,
Mm,
and I don't quite know how it happened, because um, most actors and casting directors, the people that put us in things, are usually the ones that can be quite blinkered and narrow in their field of vision. They go, "Oh, you just do comedy, so there you are. We're going to squish you into this box, put that box over there," and you kind of, a lot of people never really break out of that. And I was very lucky, I think, or I have been very lucky in the last 10 years, that I I was doing a lot of comedy because I was sort of in my 30s then, I suppose, and then you get to an age you're like, I'm not getting those parts anymore. And then I've got a break in the musical, and I did Matilda in the West End for a year and a half at the beginning. And then so you start to kind of find, oh, I can do this now.
mm,
And then you get a job in a drama, and then suddenly you're like, okay, and then you do a play, and then so you've got them all going, and you can kind of go from one to the other to the other. The trick is being able to know not, well, not to stay in one thing for
yeah,
too long. That you can
yeah,
keep. It's like playing cards, really. You want to stay at the table for as long as you can, really,
yeah,
and not kind of use all your chips up too quickly.
yeah. And one of the things you've worked on is heralded as one of the greatest things to exist because it's such a fascinating concept, and other people that are involved in it is like nowhere else, only Britain would put those people together. What was it like working on the Legend of Dick and Dom?
I was talking about the legend not long ago, actually, and as time goes on, that was a long time ago. It was 2008, 2009, 2010. Um, that was a really very, it was a very special show. And I didn't have to audition for that show, which is very rare.
Yeah,
And I wasn't a big name.
yeah,
And I remember having the meeting and just going, okay, not sure about this. Like the idea, um, hadn't met the two idiots yet,
yeah,
who I just loved. And then, but it was Steve Ride, the exec producer, and the creator of Dick and Dom, really. Every amazing series needs that kind of maverick lunatic in charge.
yeah,
And for all the kind of, I'm a BBC man and I toe the party line, he was just this incredible visionary who would do anything and everything to do stuff that he could get away with. And that was his MO was, I want to be able to push the envelope and do stuff that we can get away with. So he was doing it on Saturday mornings with Dick and Don for years. And then he said, I want to do a narrative structured show, and the idea of, you know, because of course Lord of the Rings was pretty much the biggest franchise, I think. Then, I mean, it was, we'd had three, I think, by then. So it became, well, that's what we're going to parody.
yeah,
And there hasn't been anything on TV like that for a while. um and so it's kind of, that's like murky waters. We're not quite sure when it's set, but it is set in a kind of Lauric time, and it just was a, just that he knew exactly who to put in it. So you have the core of the four of us, and then two other character, two other people, which is Ian Kirkby and Oh, it's my memory at the moment. But anyway, just the most wonderful core cast who could do anything in terms of multi-character stuff, and then your guest characters you build out from, and yeah, it's just it was magic, and we were based in the forest near Pinewood Studios, and we shot in the summer. We kind of the locations were all amazing, and I at that point, I'd never laughed so much on a set ever, and every day we were in. I mean, there were serious moments, but honestly don't think I've ever laughed so much
Yeah,
on a job. It was just joyous,
yeah.
brilliant.
Did was it did it become even more incredible when it had come to like the BBC Bite Size wanted to use this program to help educate because it helps the legacy and helps keep the memory of this amazing program alive because then people have memories of watching it and then doing learning from the concept.
It's a really good question, and to be completely honest um, with you, Tom, it wasn't something that we were really part of or aware of, I think, because that it, it's only retrospectively that you realize the importance of, and that's part of the BBC
Yeah,
remit, of course. It was to educate as well as entertain. And I think it is it's an odd marriage,
yeah,
when you look at the madness of Dick and Dom, and then, but the other thing is that it's not really, because that world of adventure and is a very engaging world, and an engaging world for kids. So actually, to educate via the bite size um, project is probably not too crazy.
yeah,
And because you have got quite clearly defined characters as well, whereas in a studio-based show, you don't, where people are themselves. You've got the idiot wizard, you've got the kind of petulant, needy girl, and you've got the very distinct characters of Richard and Dominic, and then these other characters. It was the lovely Dave Chapman who did multi-character stuff, and Ian Kirkby. So they were doing their regular characters as well. So actually, it doesn't surprise me retrospectively. And yeah, and it must have been a huge honor for Steve Wright, the producer, as well, especially, who's created this and those characters.
yeah. Because at the time when this was airing, a bunch of other shows were all in the same bubble of this is what this generation is going to remember, and having it on bite size like helps to even remember it because it's like the Sarah Jane Adventures and MI High, other things than that ring. Were all when these are really popular and the world's big enough there to help to educate, and they move it to an educational platform and you can learn. And with MI High, you got to print out a certificate that had your own card and you felt like you're on the program itself. And
Right.
and do you reckon that helps keep memories alive if you expand it into a more of an educational platform?
Such a good point. And yes, absolutely, 100%. And yeah, we remember certain things in school, and I'm 56, and I can still remember certain things in school it's for exactly that. Things that took it out of the dull drudgery of workaday learning that from uninspiring teachers, and the things that were different and unique and attractive were those things that, exactly as you say, that you're getting something out of the ordinary that you remember, so you're like, oh, okay, and that can stay with you for life, not just the TV show. And I mean, yeah, it's funny, Sarah Jane Adventures and MI High, both brilliant shows. I was in an MI High, I wasn't sadly in a Sarah Jane Adventure, but you were probably the last of that generation of great children's TV as well, because pre kind of um YouTube and TikTok, and you forget how important and resonant those shows were and sort of still are. I mean, when people people go, why do I know you? Why do I know you? I say, how old are you? And they say, oh, I'm 25, 26. And I'm like, is it Dick and Tom? Oh, yeah. And, I know I can chart my recognizability by how old people are. Oh, no, it will be that, or it will be Little Britain, or it will be the Orange Ads, or it will be whatever. And yeah, so, but it's funny that these shows and your generation of people is like, and thanks to things like not just the program but Bite Size itself, have entrenched them in your memories, and that's a really important and beautiful thing.
And you mentioned there that it's the last generation of good children's TV. I mean, the word good stretches it ever so slightly because nowhere else would you see a cartoon boy. There's no explanation to how it happened. It's the cartoon boy. He's the only one in the family that's cartoon,
Yeah, yeah,
and no explanation. But then when
yeah,
you try and tell someone that's never heard of it,
yeah,
that they can't get over the point that she's given birth to a cartoon child, and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that element just doesn't leave them. But that's apparently 15 years old, Roy, this year.
Is it?
Yeah, and so it shows that things like that don't happen anymore. And moving away from children's telly slightly for a bit,
Mm.
what was it like working on one of the BBC's most well, one of because there's many, one of the BBC's most popular programs. What was it like working on Holby City?
Um, to be honest, that was like any show. I mean, that was much more because it's been going for so long. You're just sort of part of a factory for a while and a conveyor belt. And the one thing that strikes you is how efficient these programs, far more efficient than the NHS probably. They have a target. You have to get a certain thing done by the end of the day, and it's remarkable how people say, "Oh, you think that's quick?" You wait till you do a doctor's episode, and then you do doctors, and you're like, "Oh my Lord!" Doctors. They normally when you're acting in a scene, you get to rehearse it a couple of times, and then they go, "Shall we film it?" Yeah, and then they film it. With doctors, they go, "Right, let's rehearse the scene," but they don't tell you they're filming your rehearsal.
Yeah.
So if the rehearsal goes well, they go, "That's fine," and you're like, "What? I'm just doing rehearsal." They said, "No, no, 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 it's done." Because they've got so much to get through in such a short space of time. But it's I was one of those rare recurring characters in Holby, and I say that because you either had your doctors that were in it all the time, or your patients who are in it for as long as they're ill. But they brought me back several times as a complaining patient. I'm sort of the light relief, and then by the end they kind of made me quite horrible, and I became a bit racist at the end. I was like, I feel really uncomfortable, but of course he probably is a bit like, difficult and slightly Nigel Farage. But yeah, I think with doing those sort of shows, you kind of marvel at how efficient they are and how um I'm always amazed at how actors, especially, ones in the medical genre, have to remember drug names and disease names and Latin names. And, so it's always quite remarkable to me because I have trouble remembering my name. So, yeah.
Yeah. And does it help you to develop your skill as an actor because you're in something that has to be done then?
Yeah, of course. Anything that pushes you and yeah, learning lines doesn't get any easier the older you get, um, along with many things. But I think yeah, anything that pushes you out of your comfort zone for a little bit is good. And I suffered. I don't now, but for a long time, I was really quite shy. And when I would go on set, and I'd be very quiet and just kind of observe, which is also a good thing to do because you're not showing off. You're kind of taking everything in. What's everyone doing? Um, but it sort of made me not enjoy things as much as I do now. So when I'm on set, I just love it. I love hanging around and I love, finding out what everyone's doing and, and feeling that you're part of the family. Um, and also the BBC, then really look after you. And, and look, we get well paid, but you do moan a bit. And the collective noun for a group of actors is which I love, is a complaint of actors. That's what we're called. It's a complaint of actors. But you know, you got to pay for your own parking, and you know, in the you got to buy your own lunch. You got to bring your own lunch. There is no. It's like working on a building site or anything else. There is no favored treatment just
Yeah.
because you're an actor. So, and I think that's a really good thing because it makes you kind of go, you're here for a job of work, so stop moaning and pull your socks up.
And one of the things you've worked on recently is it's been heralded as fascinating and interesting because of the platform on is like a growing platform that's already got like a lot of things behind it. But what was it like appearing in Gentlemen in Moscow?
Oh yeah, that was an odd one because I auditioned for it and then didn't hear, and then very 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 close to when they were filming, they said, "Oh no, do you want to do this role?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah." So I was only in it for an episode or two, and the the world of TV has changed so much now. So you're like, well, who's this for? Paramount Plus, and then I do one called The Serpent Queen, which is on Stars.
Yeah,
But these are big American.
yeah,
I mean, they're huge, and they're owned by Paramount, or they're owned by Disney, or they're owned by, and you watch them through Amazon. I mean, there's any number of channels, as we all know.
yeah,
What do I subscribe to? Thankfully, it's really easy to do it, and you can go, do you know what? I'm just going to subscribe for a month and then binge everything on there, and then cancel it, and then start it in 6 months. So, it's, you know, doing that is quite easy.
yeah.
Um, what's amazing is the money that these shows spend on stuff. I mean, A Gentleman in Moscow, which is a great book,
Mm,
and it's mainly set in this hotel in Moscow just after the revolution in the 1920s. And they built the interior of this hotel in a studio in Manchester where they were based. And it's like a fully, I mean, it's a huge building. And you know, but that's cheaper than them being on location for 4 months
yeah,
because you know, usually an 8-part series will take about 4 months to
mm,
film. It's like 2 weeks per episode. Um, and this one I do called The Serpent Queen is shot in France and in the south of France, and um, you know, there are millions of pounds per episode to do. I mean, millions, and so it's amazing doing those because you're working with a big crew and big actors. That was Ewan McGregor in A Gentleman in Moscow, and Sam Morton in Serpent Queen, and Charles Dance and Rupert Everett. And so you kind of there's still a part of you that's going, look who's that? Oh my God, they're on, you know. And I love that. And I never really grow out. I never get complacent. And so I'm always excited by what's happening rather than, oh, it's not like it was in the old days. Well, it never was.
yeah,
It never was. That's what everyone always says. There are things I miss about the old days,
yeah.
and there is stuff that I really like about where we are now. I think storytelling is always going to be there. But I think that we're telling stories in a different way now. Um, I think there should be more of a balance. What we've lost are smaller shows like Legend or smaller comedies, and it's all about, you know, those big shows, those big dramas. However, TikTok has taken the place of so much in terms of, and YouTube in terms of content, comedy content, and generations have learnt how to just do that on a smaller scale and provide an audience with a way of doing it for them. So, you know, I'm quite optimistic. I try not to get too miserable about it.
Yeah. And you mentioned that Surf Queen, and for anyone wondering, it is available in the UK. It's on. It's if you have to subscribe to it through Amazon Prime. It's on MGM Plus. Is
Yeah.
what it's now called here in the UK because they went through several different names and they thought, MGM's a good name. Plus,
I tell you what, if you're from my generation, you know the name of MGM just from some great films. But you're right. They go, oh, we're going to change the name. This is the problem. These companies are bought and sold all the time. And they're like, no, we bought it, so we want our branding. So you're right. It's so blooming confusing though.
yeah. And it and the world of, because your career is vast and wide and you've done so much. Are you the type of person in general that sits there and when you're on something you watch it, or are you the person that runs so far away that you'll never see yourself on the screen ever again?
It's another great question. And I used to be, I can't watch myself. I've become very, I think because I've always enjoyed putting on wigs or doing that, and I can kind of see myself almost that's like another person. That's not unusual for an actor to do that. I did a short film, one of the first acting jobs I ever did, which we put together, and it was a film called The Piano Tuner. And we had Hugh Laurie. It was me and Hugh Laurie basically in a two-hander, and I was so out of my depth, and I was so I c- I watched it a few years ago. It was horrible, but Hugh Laurie said to me, he goes, I never watch myself. I'll go to a premiere and I'll go to the red carpet and have to do what I have to do and smile for the cameras, and then I'll go and sit in the bar, or I'll just move until people will come out again. He goes, I've no interest. I like to do it to pick up my mistakes
Yeah,
and things that I
yeah,
don't want to do again. I'm like, oh, that was a bit shoddy. Oh my God, oh God, what a terrible choice. Oh God, he stinks. So those sort of things, I use it as a tool.
yeah,
Um, and but it was funny. I was watching Serpent Queen, which actually is a really good show, and then I popped up. I went, I forgot I was in this bit. So and that took me by, oh, who's this very handsome middle-aged man? And I thought, the fact that it didn't jar,
yeah,
that sonically I heard it before I saw it.
yeah,
And I thought, oh, actually, and that was the test. I think I finally reached a point where I go, I'm quite comfortable watching myself or hearing myself. It doesn't mean I enjoy it. And I go, oh, who's coming round? Right. You all sit. Now we're going to watch me, a collection of me. And I've been in situations with very well-known people where they've gone, right, we're going to just sit down and watch a DVD of it. And you're like, are you joking? And they'll sit and just sit in amongst their friends and put on themselves. It's really horrible and uncomfortable. So I would never do that or inflict that on anybody unless used as an instrument of torture.
yeah. Uh, and one of the things you've worked on that I think shouldn't have ended, uh,
Mm.
because
There's
it
many of them, but go on.
it was really good, and I think the episode that you're in is generally one of the most bizarre but both hilarious. What was it like appearing in an episode of Citizen Khan?
Oh, it was Citizen Khan when how many series was it? You'll probably know better than I
It
will.
was four.
Four? Yeah, four. I think I was in the fourth series, wasn't I?
Um, no, I think you were in
Or was
season
that third?
8. I think you were in the third.
Right, okay. I have to say, I knew Adil a little bit anyway. Is that
It is Adilra.
yes, yeah. I knew Adil anyway.
Yeah.
Not well, but we'd done a couple of things together. And again, that wasn't an audition thing. He just said, "Oh, there's a part for you," and I was like, "Oh, brilliant!" And I can remember I'd never worked up in Manchester at Media City where they were filming it, and I thought it was another experience. Wonder what that's like. Not nice, horrible. They put you all up in the same. There's only one hotel in Media City, one hotel. It's a Holiday Inn. All the rooms were so hot, and the building buzzed for some reason. It was like being in a really rubbish sci-fi, um, and um, and very surreal place. But the audience is always really good in Manchester, and and there's something about again actors being away from home and just sort of, and I like that old-fashioned studio sitcom. And I actually, it's a good question because I don't think I have done a studio sitcom since then.
Yeah.
I think that might have been the last time because no one really does them anymore. And I think it's what goes back to what I was saying before about losing stuff that we had with
Yeah,
the new way of doing TV.
yeah,
And
mm,
that studio-based sitcom is a very old-fashioned um, kind of genre, but it's quite expensive
yeah.
to do because you've got to have your actors for the week and then you rehearse them and then you do it in front of an audience. And but it's like being on stage but making a telly program. And you know, we used to do Little Britain that way. We used to do, I mean, all sorts of programs. And losing that is a real shame. But also, I knew Adam wanted to do other things anyway. I think he'd sort of reached his uh, point of we've done 4 series of this now. I mean, you know, you say shows that ended before they should have ended. Legend was absolutely we were gutted when that wasn't recommissioned, and that was simply because uh, Horrible Histories came along,
Yeah,
uh, and so I get it. You know, I mean, the Horrible Histories, the legacy of that show is extraordinary, and the you know, you name me a better children's TV show, I can't. So, you know, you feel like okay, the kind of show with the broader appeal understandably is the one that continues. So
yeah.
but yeah, that's telly. I mean, that's what happens is that things come and they go, and they should have lasted longer, or maybe they should have been culled years before they did. So
And now Adil Ray hosts the wonderful Lingo, which is incredible. It suits his personality very well.
it really does. And you don't do that unless that's something you really, really want to do, because that's properly hard work. I mean, every day, and having to, you know, really be up on the news. And he's just, Adil's a very fair and very warm and humane person. So you need more of those people in that job.
Yeah. And one of the things that you've worked on that not many people will know is a British creation due to the channel that it airs on, and I think a lot of the other actors in it are American, if I'm not mistaken, but it is a homegrown British program. What was it like being a voice in the amazing world of Gumball?
That's another show that I get a lot of people your age, younger, older, going, "Oh, you're on Gumball," and you forget again how popular it is. It's been going a long time, Gumball, probably 15 years, maybe 20, maybe longer. I took over from a friend of mine who did the first couple of series, but you also forget how long these things take to make. I mean, it's still a really old-fashioned animation in terms of the gestation of writing and then uh, doing the voices and then voices to picture. And but it's such a brilliant cartoon, and I love doing. And I've just been doing the voices for the next series. And when you get in, and they get, and you get, and you're like, oh, I get it. Oh, right. Oh, is he right? You know, it's just
Yeah,
it's there's so insanely left field, the ideas, that nothing surprises you when you start reading it. The school turns into a giant stapler, or this or that, or you know, it's like they're so
mm,
inspired,
yeah,
those ideas.
yeah,
But the actual doing of a job like that is it's pretty dull, really, because you're just in a booth for an hour reading singular lines 8, 10 times, and so they've got different options. You're not in a room with other people kind of looking at them and bouncing ideas off them, and you know, so you know, it's not like doing a Pixar animation where they try, or you know, where they try and get you all together
yeah,
at times to read off each other. And but when you watch the end result, it's they are brilliant and unique, and that's the other thing, that Gumball sort of occupies its own
yeah.
unique space in the pantheon of animation. So very proud to be part of that, actually. And we thought we'd lost it a few years ago, and then they kind of went to a different company, a different production company, and now yeah, so they're making a new series.
And it's one of those things that not many people realize, that the mad ideas and the madness of it is a British thing, because the creator was British. And then when you think about it and you match it with other British programs, you think, well, that really does match with what we're like as a country. We like doing things that are a little bit weird, and
Yeah,
we like doing things that you wouldn't expect. But then
yeah,
again, when you look at us, you think, I can sort of see
I
that
can get it. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
too.
Yeah, there's a lot of insanity and suppressed lunacy in this country, and unsuppressed lunacy as well.
Yeah,
But you're right. I think it's a great marriage between both cultures.
yeah,
And it is funny that it's set in America, in an American high school, and but also they never wanted to make my voice too American either. He said, "But can you kind of do somewhere in between?" So instead of being really, I'm keeping it more there, which is a little bit more, so it's almost a little bit transatlantic,
yeah,
and so it was a. Yeah, the note was make it a little bit like Roger Moore went on holiday for a long time to America. So I thought that was yeah. So yeah, again, a brilliant show, and long may it continue to be made.
yeah. Um, and one of the other things that you've worked on in the realm of children's TV, that's in the realm of, you'll always remember it, but you'll always think, Does that really exist?" Because it's such a weird type of thing that looks like it went by the flash, but does exist in memories. What was it like working on an episode of Hotel Trouble?
Yeah, I remember that really. Okay, I remember that really well. It wasn't the best time for me personally. I was going through divorce at the time, which wasn't awful, but I can remember having my kids with me, and we were shooting. It was a summer's day, and we were shooting in near Elstree, and in this in this old hotel, and the grounds there were lots of there was a big garden. So I remember it being really easy because the kids could just run around because they were little. They were like 3 and 5 at the time, um, and I knew a few of the same people from having. I seemed to at that time I was doing quite a lot of CBBC stuff, and that is what happens.
Yeah,
Where you kind of is what I was saying about. Oh, you're in that realm now. So I'd done Legend, and then I was doing that, and I'd done MI High, and I'd done, and so you started to go, oh, maybe I'm just going to be an actor in kid stuff. I'm not sure if I want to do that only. So I did just enough, and I remember Hotel Trouble being again one of those shows that you're like, this is sort of nuts, but in a really good way. And I remember being really hot because it was summer. I completely forgotten
yeah,
about that show until you reminded me of it, Tom. So thank you very much because it's quite. I tell you what I do remember because my son's name's Max, and I remember him being in a compost bin, and it had because they were using them to
yeah,
to move across the grass, like a kind of the one of those green bins, and it had a seat like a little thing cut out of it, and my son got in it, and of course, and it said Max on it, so it was like, and I've still got that picture of Max in a bin that says Max. Um, Great show, and a good cast as well. There was the blonde actor who was really good, and then she was really good. The black girl who was just I can't remember. There's so long I can't remember anyone's name. They were both receptionists together, or young receptionists together. They were brilliant. They were like worked really well as a young double act. And again, you don't know how good those things are
yeah,
until you're on set and you're like, we've auditioned them both separately, but you put them both behind the desk, and there's a little friction, and there's a kind of will they, won't they thing going on, and they love each other, they hate each other. And then you throw in a couple of left field lunatic characters as well.
yeah.
And it just really, yeah, I loved it. How many series?
I think it went. I think if I remember rightly, it
Three?
was only like two. I think he was a
Two.
wasn't on for that, and that's why it's like one of those things where you're not 100% sure if you actually remember it. But I think Hotel Trouble helped to have a kids. It's like a kids version of Fawlty Tower without the yelling, bloke with very long legs.
Exactly right.
He's got
Yeah.
strank legs.
In fact, I'm just looking it up as well. Hotel Travel. Oh yeah, it was Dominique Moore and Sam Phillips, uh, who were the two I was thinking of, and oh, Tanya Francis, who's an old mate. She was one of the regular. Of course, Miranda Hart was in it. Remember Miranda Hart? The little known Miranda Hart. Gosh, isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it was one of those that like it had all the madness that CBBC at that time felt like what Channel 4 was trying to do was being something that you wouldn't see anywhere else. You couldn't
yeah.
get that madness on other than My Parents Failing on CITV. I don't think there was that much madness on other channels other than CBBC because nowhere else would you get that. And it was like, and then little Howard's Big Question with a cartoon bloke and
Yeah.
things like that. And I think that's what the BBC does well, just does things that no one else thinks should exist but do exist.
Well, the BBC do it because they have the license fee and they have a department that's bigger and they valued more. ITV were already sort of dismantling
Yeah,
theirs, and Channel 4 never really had one. They had a youth orientated department as opposed to a children's
yeah,
dedicated children's thing. Um, so it was always left up to the BBC really, um, and with people like, as I said, like Steve Ride, who was our exec, who went on to become kind of the, and Cheryl Taylor, who was the head of the department as well. These were comedy people,
yeah,
they loved comedy, and they valued how important it was to have good quality kids comedy. Um, and so many of the writers and Howard Reed and people that they'd all come from stand up, like we all had from cabaret and stand up, and found a way that children's TV allowed them to really expand what they did, not think, oh god, it's just children's TV. No, no, no. Oh wow, it's children's
yeah,
TV. You could do stuff that you could get away with that you couldn't do because children's imaginations are far more fertile than you know adult imaginations that have been dulled and kind of battered by the drudgery of work and family disappointment. So yeah, it was quite an optimistic and quite beautiful place to work and see ideas flourish. And I think you're correct to bring all these up. It's great.
yeah. And it's nowhere else would you see the black lace cleaning up the CBC office and every ad break, every time they cut to them, they try to sing Agadoo and we got shut down every time. And only them, the people that went to Eurovision and then decided, no, we'll do Agadoo. It's just, no, it's just pure joy, and I think that what they're trying to do now is I think they're trying to bring that back because Robert Webb is going to be in a children's sitcom with Izzy Sutty and then other like Donna Preston who was in Sandman, she's appearing in
Oh yeah, no,
uh,
Donna Plus, yeah.
a series. So I think what they're trying to is is sort of bring it back in a way because there's still because Blue Peter's still knocking about, so there is still that need for children's entertainment, and they're trying to feed it forwards, but trying to keep it as it was.
I mean, listen, I'm all for it. I wonder if it'll ever happen again like it did. And I don't want to be a harbinger of doom, but I think that feels like the horse has already bolted. And in terms of technology and how things are operating now, I think that it may well find an audience, but it will be a harder audience to find because we all gravitated toward the one thing, in the corner of the room, and we fought over the remote and what to watch. But
Yeah,
as soon as you give people the ability to watch on one of these, then you take that away, and you kind of dilute it. So, but I am all for trying to get kids and any younger kids that aren't yet addicted to phones
yeah,
to get them to collectively watch is still, but that's the thing, people don't collectively watch like they used to, so that's sort of what we've lost.
Yeah, and the BBC a few years ago when Michael Grove was announced it was acting, they made a documentary about the end of children's TV,
Right. Yeah,
which
it
is
doesn't bode
funny
well,
as
does it?
ever because this is why I mention it, and because I have to get the news out there. That there's a scene where the narrator's talking about Grange Hill, but what
Mm.
you're looking at and what you're hearing is the theme tune and the title sequence for the BBC version of Narnia. So you're watching the Chronicles of Narnia while she's talking about Grange Hill,
Right. Okay.
the cliff of Grange Hill, and then it and never mention Narnia ever again,
Right.
or not even mention it the first time. It's just what you're watching.
So you think it was just badly fact checked and then
Yeah, and then they
oh,
did Jack and
terrible.
Henry one, and they mentioned 4 names of people that were reading, and all you could see was Patricia Routledge on your
Right.
screen as they
Okay.
mentioned 4 other people, not even
Oh
her.
God. Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah.
Oh.
And as we come towards the end of this glorious, wonderful, magical interview, um, the puns there if you want to think it's there. Um, what was it like working alongside Martin Clunes on Manhunt?
Um, a joyous actor, really lovely. I mean, really, I'd met him a few times in the past, and my ex-girlfriend, a long time ago, she was one of the producers on Men Behaving Badly. So when that was big, so I was aware that everyone goes, Martin Clunes, one of the good guys. Oh, everyone loves Martin. Oh, Martin Clunes is lovely. And they're right. You get that reputation for a reason. And usually you get the other side of the coin. You get a reputation for being not so nice when you're not. Who knew? But he really and also because he's quite a light comedy actor. You know, Doc Martin sort of it's been going on forever, and it's his production company, and it's very it's a cozy Cornish comedy, but Manhunt was really serious, and it was about a real case, the Belfield case. It was a pretty gruesome crime. It's horrible, and it was linked into the phone hacking scandal. So there was a big, weighty, heavy issues, and it was Martin's production company that wanted to make this, and Martin was playing the someone real who was the real inspector who did solve this murder. And so that's a hard gig to do. But I have to say, he was just impeccable and was a brilliant leader of all of us, and made a couple of good friends on that show. And yeah, really good. And then worked with him on. Was the other way around? Did I do Doc Martin? I think I did Doc Martin first, and then Manhunt. And then I was meant to do the second series of Manhunt, and I was playing someone real. The production company have a duty to ask the real person that you're playing if they wouldn't mind. That one. We're going to make another one. Do you mind us using your name? And the bloke went, no. I don't want you using my name in it. And they're like, what? And he said, no. And they said, is there any reason? No, no reason. Just don't want it. And they're like, we have never in like 20 years of doing this sort of thing and asking real people if that, we've never had anyone who said no. So I lost for a few weeks work on the second series because this bloke went, nah, don't fancy it much. Well, why? Don't have to give you a reason, just don't fancy it. Like, well, you don't have to do anything, no. So that was it's sort of that soured the taste of Manhunt for me a little bit. But wow, it was a really good show. Really, really good show. It's one of those that pops up that I on the ITV player, and it's always worth a watch. It's great, really good. And for me, being in a drama, I was quite because it was the first kind of big drama I've been in, so I was quite excited. And I love the fact that every day you don't quite know what you're going to be going on to next. To like being on a really bad roller coaster with a lot more fear.
Yeah, and ITV do really well in the drama as of the last couple of years. They do
Yeah,
really well in the drama department, and it might and it's and all everything they do is just A, looks stunning, and B, is stunning, and all the actors that are in it are stunning.
yeah,
Um, and it just helped tell this story if you've got wonderful, creative people and things to go at, and without doing BBC drama, ITV dramas even, we wouldn't have like breakthroughs with like the post office.
Absolutely. You know, it's such a good point. And then the longer you're in this game, the more you realize how cyclical it is.
Yeah,
And and it goes by who is in the head, who's heading those departments and who has that particular vision. Even Channel 5, who knew that Channel 5 would suddenly come up from way behind in the race? And you're like, oh, hello, we didn't see them coming. No one was looking,
yeah,
because Ben Frau, who's the head of Channel 5's got a different vision.
yeah,
And so slowly they understand their worth, and they're investing in that more than, and you just see it realigns a little bit. But you're absolutely right. ITV are telling important drama, and they're doing it really well. I'm about to do another true story with Sheridan Smith in this new show for ITV. And it's funny how, yeah, it's in 5 years it'll be the BBC
yeah,
again, because that's just the way it goes. And the reason it'll be the BBC is probably because whoever's head of ITV is going to go back to the
yeah,
BBC, and
yeah,
round they go. It's like there's only so many jobs, you know. Although now they'll be going to Amazon or to Stars or
yeah,
to, wherever else. But that's a really good point.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that Channel 5, you write the argument, they still do the 1985 kitchens or the best shops on the high street in the 2000s, but they also do incredible dramas such as The Nightcrawler. There's
Mm.
Sean Pertwee in it that was hands down incredible.
Yeah.
Not just
Yeah.
for the Sean Pertwee being amazing, everyone else was amazing in it as well, but I got drew in because Sean Pertwee was incredible in the adverts. And yeah, it just draws you in. He looks more like John Pertwee in everything he does.
I'll tell him that. He'll love that.
Yeah, and I think that the only thing that the British TV industry sort of doesn't do correctly is realise when one person's using the name of a program. Because there was at one point there was 3 different versions of Suspect. There was
Right.
a program called Suspect on Channel 5, and one on ITV, and one on Channel 4. They were all about 3 separate things.
Right.
When you
Yeah.
search up Suspect, do you want the Channel 5 one? Do you want the
Yeah.
Channel 4 one? Or do you want the ITV one? And they're all about several different things, starring several different people. And that's the only thing I think the TV industry sort of fails at, is realising when one thing's called one thing, you need to then
But as well, you don't know when these things are going to come out, and you don't know when their suspect is going to come
yeah,
out. Do you know what I mean? You've made yours 2 years ago, and you've been waiting for your suspect to be on, and now, and then you're like, oh, brilliant! There are 4 of them on at the same time. Or the other thing is just change the name. Don't have suspect in your title, because you will know that somebody else will be using that name. So yeah, call it something completely different, and yeah.
and so as we come to the stopping point in our fictional choo-choo train. It's a new analogy I'm working on here.
Right.
As we get
Beautiful buffet car,
yeah,
lovely buffet car. Yeah.
as we're getting towards the end, and we've stopped asking people if they want a chocolate finger, whatever dairy milk, whatever flavour of finger you're after. Is there anything that you've got coming up that you're allowed to tell people that you're excited for people to watch?
Well, that thing I'm doing with Sheridan Smith, I can't say what it is, but that will be coming out next year, and that looks like a really good show again for ITV. Um, and uh, that's probably I made a very weird thing that's like a Bible story thing told in the modern age, and that where I'm playing I'm playing the first person to be cured by an apostle, not Jesus. And so, but it looks amazing. And that was with a quite young and exciting cast. And again, I don't know what's coming out. Oh, and hopefully we're doing another series of Serpent Queen, and the second series is on. We're in the middle of it now, and it's really, really good.
Yeah.
I'd say it's one of the best things I've seen this year. It's really good. Yeah.
So there we have it. A few things we mentioned here are available in the wide world. So Serpent Queen, MGM Plus, Gentleman in Moscow, Paramount Plus. And the key things I like to mention, if you're a student in university or college, and your university and college are signed up for Box of Broadcast, then you can watch Hotel Trouble, MI High, Dickens. You can watch a vast majority of programs from the 60s to last Tuesday,
That's good.
or yesterday. Because it's a system for educational purposes, but also just if you want to watch the programs again, you can watch them in chronological order, and you can see the transcripts. It's very educational and very handy because it's BBC, ITV, and everyone, including German channels that only show German news, not the actual German program that they produce on that channel. So many things and
Sehr
many
gut.
more. So thank you, Steve, for letting me interview you.
Thank you, Tom. It's been an absolute pleasure.
And thank you guys for watching. There'll be more interviews by me because I will never stop interviewing people. There's a list longer than my arm and the list of people I want to interview. So I'll be here for years to come across all 21 YouTube channels. So I'll never leave your eyes, your ears. Well, I might leave your ears if you stop listening to me, but if you don't stop listening to me, I'll still be in your ears. And if I'm stood next to you and I'm in your ear, just tell me to just move away, just move closer, distant. I don't need a restraining order or anything, but just closer, distant away. So, thank you guys for watching. And remember, no, I've forgotten.